hands-on in the sense that I'll try to give like some tips that you can use for yourself, like very specific for your own interests. So if you guys want to take some time to just take a pen and a pencil, or just open a file, a text file in your computer, this would be maybe helpful for you to just like follow some of the things that I'm going to be discussing today. So I'll first start talking a little bit about me. So I have, as OpenAI already said, I have, let me just, 1 second. Okay. I have a background in physics. So since I was 9 years old, I wanted to become an astronomer. I have this very funny story that I wanted to save the sun. So I wanted to study astronomy, to just understand more about stars and galaxies and so on. And for that, like in my hometown in Brazil, so I'm from the south of Brazil, and then there was a physics department where there was an astronomy department. So I did my bachelor's in physics, and then also after that, I did my master's and PhD focusing on astronomy. So I have a background in physics with a specialization in astronomy, so to say. And so since then, since many, many years, more than 10 years, I've been working with research in astronomy, looking into nuclear physics combination with astronomy, how to explain stars with nuclear physics. And in this meantime that I was studying physics, I did most of my education in Brazil, but then I had the opportunity to come to Germany to do a PhD internship. So this was in 2014. And I came to study in Frankfurt in an interdisciplinary institute. And then there I got to work with people, not only working with astrophysics, but also in other fields. And then I got very interested in topics such as renewable energies and AI and artificial intelligence. And so I became, I started to also work a little bit in these fields. I had a very nice mentor and supervisor that was okay with me being interested in other topics as well. So he was actually encouraging me quite a lot to not only focus on astronomy, but also in other fields as well. So more or less back then, I started to learn a little bit about data science in courses, or also like some seminars. We had some groups, study groups in the institute as well. And yeah, so then I became very interested in what in the potential of data science, of what it can do for society and for the world. Because of course, like I like research very much, and it's a very fun part of my story. But I became like very keen into understand how I can use actually data science and all these technical skills to help the world. So about 1 year ago, I started to I decided basically to take the leap into data science and to change careers. And this is when I joined Omdena about a year ago. And since then, I've been working with projects related to social impact as a lead machine learning engineer and also as a project manager. This is how I met OpenAI. It was a very nice experience working with her, and the team did an amazing work in terms of online abuse of children. It was a very inspiring project. So I've been focusing on social impact, on how we can use data science or machine learning techniques to tackle like the many, many problems that we have nowadays in society. And so yeah, so this is what I've been doing. And so for this is like just an intro, so you guys can understand what I've been doing. And then now I will try to share a little bit with you of some of the useful tips that were helpful for me to go in this trajectory from academia and astrophysics into data science and social impact. So this is more or less what we're going to be discussing today. So I'm going to start with what is it that we do in data science and why is everybody so excited about it. And then we're going to be discussing a little bit about the roadmap for changing careers. And for example, this will involve knowing what kind of career aspirations you have, and defining a plan, and then how to keep improving yourself and your learning and so on. So starting with the data science. So data science is a science that combines several fields. So it has several ingredients of computer science, mostly programming and algorithms and so on. Has also many components of math and statistics, such as the probability and statistical distributions and so on. But it's also a very applied field, which means that we use it also for specific domains of application that can be, you name it, can be physics, can be healthcare, finance, and many other things as well. And data science has become in the past years like a very prominent and exciting career path. And this has to do with some factors, and some of them are the fact that now we have data, an exponential increase of data availability. So in fact, there are like some reports from Forbes that show that about 90% of all the data that has been produced in the world has been produced in the last couple of years. So this is something that is like there's this boom of data available, and then we can analyze it and get insights that can be helpful for many businesses and many other social applications as well. And on the same way, we also got to have much more computational resources, meaning that now we have computers that can process all this information much faster than they could before, and also store all this information, or almost all this information. And of course, we had lots of advances in many fields of AI, such as natural language processing or computer vision that can that can add a lot of value to different applications and businesses and so on. So uh, just to mention a few of the possible applications of AI, we have several, like, or data science, like we have data scientists in pretty much every sector of the job market these days. So for example, we have people working with finance using predictive models or risk analysis to evaluate financial transactions and making decisions based on that. We also have fields of marketing or customer behavior, um, in which we are using analysis to make personalized products, or and also effectively targeting the clients for specific markets, for example. And we also have, like, for example, for energies and transport applications, for example, in renewable energies, with trying to predict how much energy can be produced, or for example, for transport, we have self-driving cars now coming up, and they're not out there yet, but there's a lot of advances in that, and also a lot of analytics of even how to just like improve traffic or also logistics and so on. And there's, of course, like the entire pharma industry and healthcare that is trying to make a better understanding or a more effective production of drugs, and also creating patient profiles and having analysis of those patients, and then maybe try to find a cure for their diseases in a more efficient way and faster as well. So the data science job market, as I mentioned, is something that is very exciting these days. So there's this quote that a lot of you probably already heard. There is this: the data science is the sexiest job in the 21st century. And it has been for many, many years, specifically now in the US, but it's pretty much the same in many other places. It has been for 4 years in a row the #1 job to be searched for, and is also expected that the number of jobs in the data science sector will increase until the next 5 years. And this is because we, as we mentioned before, we have lots of data available, and we don't have actually so many people that have those skills. So for example, I mentioned that we have a data scientist is someone that has the knowledge of a computer scientist, and someone that has the background in math and statistics, and also some specific knowledge, domain knowledge. And this is not something that so many people out there have. So for this reason, it's a job that is increasing a lot, and it still needs a lot of people working on. And because of that, we also have like very competitive salaries. That is something that attracts people quite a lot. But I like to think that also another very exciting thing about data science is this is just very fun for someone that comes from a engineering or scientific background. Is something that it can be very fun because you're using the skills that you already have to something very applied and doing something that you like, that is doing analysis and so on. So when we go into in terms of the roadmap of what we are going to be doing as a data scientist and so on, there is always the problem of where to start. So, for example, you you decide that you want to be a data scientist, and then you realize that there are 10,000 courses out there, and that there are so many things that you have to learn, and so many of those buzzwords and so on. So, but there are, depending on which road you want to follow in your career as a data scientist, there will be some things that will be more specific, but there are the ones, there are the beginning, so to say, so where you start. And where you start is kind of similar to everybody, depending of course on the skills that you already have. So for example, even if you already are someone that has some knowledge of programming, it's always good to have a look into the specific libraries that are used as in data science, because they might not be the same that you use in maybe your other work. And there's always this thing of whether you're going to be using Python or R or even automated machine learning techniques. And this will depend a lot on which sector you're going to be working on, and also in which company you're going to be working. Because depending on the company, people prefer to use Python, for example. Depending on the company, they prefer to use R, and this is something that is very dependent. And there's also this thing that most of the people that are coming into data science, because nowadays there are like bachelor courses in data science, but it's something that is very recent. Like if you are in your 30s and so on, chances are that when you were studying, there was no such a thing as a bachelor course in data science. So you probably have another background, such as as physics or engineering, or maybe even like something very different. And but the point is that whatever skills you already have, and this is something good, there is a chance that you're going to have to catch up with something from the beginning, be it programming, be it specifically some machine learning techniques and so on. And to start with that, there are many good places for you to go. So there is a lot of self-learning. Of course, you can also choose to have like maybe some courses that are more specific, that will have someone to help you. It's your learning style, so to say. But there are many platforms where you can at least practice a little bit. So for example, for programming, you can have a look into Code Signal and HackerRank. There's the ones that I mentioned here. There are many, many others. That is just like for training you specifically, not about machine learning, but just like the programming language, the programming syntax, starting with something very simple and then progressing to something more complicated according to what you learn in your case as well. And for learning, there is also, of course, like there's Coursera, there is edX. There are tons of great tutorials on YouTube, sorry. And for example, that have classes from Ivy League universities and so on. So there's like the basics of learning, be it the math or the statistics or the basic machine learning knowledge, you can probably get from those platforms. And if you just want to watch the classes, you can even audit. But there is this option that you don't need to pay. You pay only if you want to have a certificate. But if you want to just have the knowledge, you can actually go to those platforms and learn. And of course, it's also important to be part of events and join your community. And nowadays, especially with the pandemic, there are many, many things happening online pretty much all the time. So there are very, very good events out there that maybe back in the days that we didn't have the pandemic would be very local. Yeah, but now, for example, you can go to a meetup that is happening, I don't know, in New York or in Australia, and you can still be like get in contact with those people that are there as well. And there's, of course, like a social media. There are lots of people in social media sharing very good resources for you to just learn, not necessarily the methods per se, but also to just learn how to like to just read articles and understand what is going on in this field if you're just trying to first have a general idea of what it is about. So moving on. So data science, as I said, combines several disciplines, and those disciplines, depending on what you do, it's going to be quite different in the process of the entire pipeline or workflow of a data scientist. So there are many stages, and these are the ones that I'm highlighting here of a data science project. Depending on your specific project, might there be others, but these are the most general ones. And I mentioned this part of these different parts of a project and different disciplines, because depending on what you want to focus on in your career, it might be that you're going to be more involved in, maybe you are a more data-oriented person, and then you're going to be working more in the data collection and pre-processing area. Or maybe you are someone that likes to analyze things and likes to make visualizations, so you're going to be working more in the analysis or communication part. Or maybe you are a person that is very much into programming, and maybe you have like a computer science background, and then you're going to be more in the modeling part. And there's also deployment, that is when your models are ready and so on, you have to put it into production, then it's a whole nother story. So all these ingredients of data science workflow, so to say, are very important to define what kind of career path you're going to choose. And of course, you can also have, you can also be, depending if you're working in a small company, it might be that you have to do all those parts because they don't have so much manpower for that. But it might be that if you're working in a big company, they actually have some team that is responsible more for the yellow parts here, and someone is more responsible for the blue parts, and so on. So it's something that it will also depend a little bit on the place where you're going to be working. So, and I mentioned those the workflow before, because this also kind of channel a little bit of which kind of roles you're going to be looking. So when you talk about data science, there is a bunch of positions out there. You shouldn't be looking only for data science or data scientist positions, but that there are many names out there. And here I'm just listing a couple of them. There are many others, but like the most common. So for example, I mentioned the people that work more in the analysis part, or the data engineer will be the person that's going to be working more like with getting the data, doing the pre-processing, like the cleaning of the data, or maybe you have several data sets and you have to put them all together, like doing this wrangling of data. And or if you're a machine learning engineer, you're going to be working more specifically with building models, and maybe you won't have anything to do with the data. You're just going to receive the data already in a nice format for you. And there are, of course, the business intelligence developers. There are the people that work more like with the clients. So they have to be very strong with communication and building visualizations that kind of summarize everything that you want to say in a language that the non-technical people that are going to be the stakeholders and so on understand. And you also have, of course, cloud engineers that are going to be people more specialized in cloud systems such as AWS or IBM Watson and stuff like that. So, knowing more or less what kind of direction you want to go, you kind of even feel like what kind of profile you have. Like, oh, I'm a person that I'm much more into programming, and I'm not so much interested in data. So maybe I would just go more like for positions more like a machine learning engineer. And also like the kind of role that you're going to have will define the kind of skills that you need to have. Because I'm pretty sure that if you ever looked into job ads for data science, you probably saw it's a jungle. Like, I mean, it's a lot of words, like buzzwords out there and so on. So like it's important to understand that not all those skills that are required are really required for all of those roles, so to say. And yeah, and just to mention the data scientist is basically, as I mentioned before, the person that does a little bit of everything. So, but of course, the roles also depend a bit on which company you are applying, because they might have different definitions of how they understand what those roles are. Another important thing to think about when you're looking into positions is, or even like when you're trying to just think, where do you want to go in terms of career? So you'll just come back. You have to think of what this workflow, more or less, what do you think you already know, or maybe what kind of thing that you would think that is more appealing for you. And then you can try to find what kind of role is more or less one of those here that you would be more interested. And but there is also like the technical part, because as a data scientist you can be specialized in so many areas of artificial intelligence. So you can be someone that is specialized in text analysis, so natural language processing, or maybe you are more like a images person, so you're going to be more into the direction of computer vision, or you're more into an analysis, so you're going to be more into data analytics and so on. And there are like, of course, like the models part of machine learning, deep learning, and so on. And this will be also very dependent on which sector you are working, because there's the role that you're going to have as a data scientist, but there's also the field of application. So as I mentioned before, finance or healthcare and so on. So each of those sectors, as I mentioned, they all use data science in a way, but they will all be using data science, maybe some specific techniques of data science, and kind of having this notion that there are so many things out there, and obviously you won't learn all of these things at once. I mean, even in 1 year, you will not learn all of those things, because it's really like the fields themselves are very deep and complicated. So you have to kind of like, when we think about channeling our goals and so on, we have to think of what is the sector that we are interested, and what are the skills that we need, and so on. So this is a way to try to have a notion of that. And this is actually what I'm going to be talking next, which is this knowing your interests. So I think before even starting with thinking of what we want to do in a career, it's important to think of yourself first, of like what kind of person are you? So what kind of work style or what kind of work environment do you want to work at? So for example, I am not a morning person, and the people that know me know this very, very well. So for me, if I can work in a place where I can have flexible hours, this is amazing. So I am also a person that likes a lot to mentor people, but others are not so much into it. So for example, you have to think of a kind of job you want to have. Doesn't need to be that you will get this job or anything, but like it's important to know what is this, that like what is a plus for you, or what is a really a no-go. So having this notion that I am very stressed with working with strict deadlines, so this is maybe some kind of jobs won't be for you. So for example, maybe working in a consultancy requires for you to have like very, very strict deadlines all the time. It's very stressful. You have to work like, I don't know, 50, 60 hours per week. So you have to travel a lot, which might sound as something good, but considering that you have to travel to just meet clients and just come back, might not be so good, especially if you have a family. So having this notion of what is it that you want, it's very important for you to understand what kind of companies, even in what kind of sector do you want to work. Because for example, there might be sectors, for example, let's say you are a person that is very how can I say, casual. So you don't like to have like super fancy things. You don't like to have to wear a suit and so on. And you would rather work in a company that is more chill, that like maybe like startups and so on, that people like wear sneakers and so on, instead of like something very fancy. So for example, maybe working in a bank wouldn't be something for you. So if you're not a very formal person, because this is more or less how people behave in this kind of jobs. So having this notion of what is it that you like, or what is it that you're willing to do, may sound a bit silly, but it's actually a very good start for you to just have this notion of what is it that you like, or where is it that you want to go. And so there's, of course, like the sectors of interest. So maybe you are more interested in working in healthcare or in energies, but you are not so much into finance or maybe you are into finance, but there's no way that you want to work with marketing and so on. So knowing these things will also help you to find the kind of like jobs that you are willing to do, or or maybe you just want to have a data science job and you don't care what sector this is going to be, and you are okay with that. But then you also have to think, for example, what kind of professional aspirations I want to have. So do I want to have more like a manager role, or do I want to have do I want to go for like being an entrepreneur and so on. So for example, if you are gonna have a management role, it's all very nice and it's like a very interesting. You have a big picture and so on. But there are like, for example, you'll be coding way less than you used to. And are you okay with that? Because maybe you are a person super excited about programming, and you say like, you know what? I don't want to be a manager. I just want to do my coding here at the corner and so on. So it's important to have this notion of knowing yourself, knowing what you want, and so on, and start to ask yourself those kind of questions, because this will by itself already kind of cross out some things and like highlight some other careers for you. So also in terms of knowing yourself, it's very important for you to know what skills you have. So because chances are that you already have a background, even if you're a student, that means that you have the background of the course that you are taking at the moment. And it means that you are learning from the courses that you are taking, and you are having exercises and projects and so on. So I would say that it's important for you to think of like what kind of skills you have naturally. So for example, and by skills, I don't mean not necessarily like technical skills. I mean also what is called like soft skills. So for example, maybe you are a very good speaker, or maybe you are a very good with math, like you are very fast with understanding things very fast. So like this is something that is good for you to know, because these are going to be the skills that you know that you don't have to have a problem with. I mean, it's not that you don't have to pay attention to them. Of course, you have to foster and keep them growing, but it's something that you know that you don't need to spend so much time at, because you're already good at it. But there will be things that, of course, you're not as good at, and I will talk about them in a second. But there are also, like, as I mentioned, like the previous experiences you have. And so from the previous experiences you have, you might mean that you already have some skills that are necessary for your career. So for example, if you're from computer science or engineering, you probably learned a little bit about math. You probably learned a little bit about programming. And there are also like skills that were not so specific. So for example, there are skills that you can transfer. So you learned in this context of, I don't know, engineering or something, but now you're going to apply it into data science. So they are a little bit different, but it's not something that you're starting from zero. You are actually, you already have experience. You just have to kind of like see your skills from a different perspective, so to say. So for example, let's say you worked as an engineer for I don't know, for a car company. So you already have some sector in the mobility sector. You already have some experience, and that means that if you apply for a data science position in a car company, maybe you don't have so much strong data science skills, but you already have knowledge of the field. You already have some, you're not starting from zero as someone that maybe came from, like, I don't know, healthcare and then starting to work in a car company. So this makes a difference. And this is for sure something that is like a plus for you if you're applying to a position. Also, if you have a STEM background, as I said, like a science, engineering, math, and so on, you have this training of this critical thinking training. You are used to kind of see things in a logical way, or at least you're trained in the several courses you take through your education. And so if you have a research work, a research background, chances are that you have analytical skills already. So you not only have this kind of like thinking, but you also have like this more like hands-on ability to really like perform analysis and so on, like mathematically and so on. So like having this notion of all those skills can help you a lot, because this will tell you what is it that you already have when you're going to start in a job. And so moving on into how to channel those skills and also other things. When you have this profile of yours, like you created your profile with the skills that you already have, the skills that can be transferred from a previous experience and so on. And then now you can think of, what skills are strong for you. So these are the skills that you're going to highlight in your CV and your profile. And there are the skills that you realize that are actually lacking on your data science kind of like journey. And this is normal. Like, there is nothing wrong with that. Like, no one, or I mean, unless you are really don't do anything else with your life and you're maybe super old, um, no one has like all skills set, especially because the skill sets are always changing every year. There are new things for us to learn. So you don't need to feel bad about it, but it's something that you have to work on. So for example, when I say that there are like a lacking skills, what I mean is you're gonna decide, you're gonna look into the job roles that you're interested. Let's say I want to be an analyst, and then I'm going to start looking for jobs for being an analyst. And then I'm starting to realize that most of the jobs ask for, I don't know, for having Python libraries, knowledge of, like, I don't know, NumPy, Pandas, Matplotlib, and so on. And they want me to know some machine learning techniques as, like, I don't know, clustering or decision trees and something. And and they have always more or less the same skills. So some of them are going to be a bit different because it depends on the company and the sector and so on. But some of them are more or less always the same. And then you realize, like, oh, I don't know one of those skills. So these are the skills that you're going to be focusing on. So these are the skills that you're going to be realizing, like, oh, I don't know this. And then you can even like kind of like rank them, because maybe you want to be an analyst and you don't know SQL, but you also don't know, I don't know, deep learning or natural language processing and so on. But then in the list of the next things for you to learn should be SQL, because SQL is important for data analysis. But maybe natural language processing or deep learning is less common for you to have. I mean, it's still part of this kind of like a bundle of skills for you to learn, but should be not necessarily the next in the list unless it's something that you really want to learn. So also in terms of in how like you have those skills, or you want to learn more about those skills, you want to acquire those skills. So how do you do that? And the way you do that is like you have to build a portfolio anyways, because you're going to learn things, but you have to convince people that you know those things. And the way you do that is by showing what is it that you already know, what is it that something that you've seen before. And for that, you have to just do projects, and you can do this in groups and or alone. And I'll talk a little bit about this later. But basically, you have to build a portfolio. And people get sometimes a bit nervous or scared of building a portfolio, thinking that something that has to be perfect and that has to be super complicated. And actually, it doesn't. And most of the time, I talk to people and I actually show them that there are things that probably already did, and it's just not there. So, for example, I worked in physics before. I studied astronomy before, and most of my work was doing analysis. I wouldn't call it analysis back then because for me it was just research. But this is a transferable skill that I have. And then, for example, I could write a small. Okay. So yeah, sorry about that. I don't know if I was something with my connection, but yeah. So I was saying about the portfolio. So in the end, what you need in a portfolio is not anything that is super complicated or like a very advanced skills or anything. It's actually about being able to communicate. So for example, being able to show your skills, not only technical skills, but also your ability to, for example, communicate complex ideas or tasks to people that are non-technical. So for example, if you're going to be working as a data scientist, you're going to have your boss that is maybe a manager that doesn't have a background in data science, and you cannot go there and start talking about models and so on, because that's not what is important for them. So you kind of have to have this notion of knowing how to take a data set and so on, do your calculations, and still be able to, it doesn't matter how complicated your calculations are, and still be able to communicate in a simpler way, or in a way that is like a very objective and so on. And in the same way, it's also about showing your ability to get insights from data. And for that, you don't really need to have anything super complicated. You can simply have like, if you take a data set and you just make plots about it, like of course, like plots that are relevant for what you want to discuss about, and you have like some statistical analysis and so on. This is not something super complicated from a machine learning point of view, but this is already data science, and this is already showing your ability to understand data, to just like take a graphic or a plot and just seeing what it means, what is it that it's showing, and so on. And in the same way, it's important to like show the most common machine learning techniques out there, specifically for the kind of sector or the kind of job that you want. And also, it's also important to have at least one project in your portfolio that is able to show that you can go from all those paths that I mentioned before, all the workflows. So, for example, that you are able to collect data and do data cleaning and apply models and then do analysis and so on. So obviously, it doesn't need to have all the single parts of the path, but it's important to show that you're not only good with making models, or you're not only good with cleaning data, that you can do many things. And of course, it's not something that you do just it's not going to learn how, you're not going to learn how to do this, or you're not going to have a portfolio in a week or anything, but it's important for you to just like take your time to learn things little by little, and just keep adding things there. And I didn't mention here, usually you do portfolios on GitHub, because it's just where everybody goes for programming these days. There's also other things as GitLab, and there you can also have your own web page and so on. But it's kind of like nice to have it there, because it's just like where everybody looks at. So also in terms of profile, when you think about putting yourself out there, you can have your profile not only as a CV, but also like whatever social media that you use. There's of course LinkedIn or other professional social medias specifically for that, but depends on like maybe some people are more like inclined to use Instagram or even Facebook. But the important thing is that you have to remember that whatever is there on the internet, people will see it, not only your friends, not only your family, also the companies that you're going to be applying to and so on. So it's important to make sure that you look professional, what kind of people you want to be attracting to your profile, so to say. So this is a little bit of personal branding, but for example, if you want to have people that are interested in data science, so you should be trying to follow people that are interested in data science. You should be also like trying to share content that is interesting for someone that is following data science. And in this way, you kind of like naturally will form your group of people and so on. So oops. Yeah, and also like in terms of network, there is like why you should get a network, and network is like people that are connected to you in social media and so on. And this is important because you need to know, for example, what is happening in the field, what is like what are the trends, like now everybody is learning about AWS, and maybe next year someone will all be learning about something else. And the way for you to know this is like getting in contact with the people that are interested in this field, and can be like people that also will become later like friends, honestly, and can even be people that like you're gonna be in contact with, and then later on can refer you to some job, or even like put you in contact with someone that already has some position that is interesting for you, can give you advice and so on. And you can do this via social media. You can also do this via events. Nowadays, there are lots of meetups, as I mentioned. There's meetup.com. It's like also kind of an application that you can just, it used to be in person. So like every city used to have their own events, not only for data science, also for other things. But nowadays, everything is online. And there are also, of course, like conferences, or you can participate in projects. And in all these ways, you can meet people and like meet people that want to be data scientists, meet people that are already data scientists, or that are from the companies that you are interested in working at. Maybe you meet someone that is a developer and not a data scientist, but is still someone that works in the company that you are interested. And maybe you can talk to that person and just ask like, hey, is this company nice? What kind of like, I don't know, benefits you have or something like this. So you can just learn a little bit about the company by talking to people that already work there. And the thing is that like we tend to be a bit shy about it, and just like talking to people, it's a bit awkward at the beginning, just like talking to strangers. But it really like is something that is very natural. And nowadays we have so many ways to do that. And obviously you don't need to be creepy or anything. Like you can like just approach people, just like introduce yourself and like say that you're trying to learn about the field and that you would like some advice and so on. And usually people tend to be okay with that. And if they are not, like the worst that will happen is that no one will reply to you. But eventually, depending on how you approach people and so on, this will happen. This can be very helpful for you. So our almost last part is also trying to think about, in terms of strategy for changing careers, is trying to think of the big picture. So for example, where you are right now in your life, and where do you want to be. So for example, uh, for me, changing careers, I chose to take a break because I was working in research, and research can be very daunting. You can like pretty much be all the time working. So I didn't really have the chance to kind of like set aside and really work on a project. I was learning from courses, but it wasn't something that was possible for me to really take the time to work in a project. And this is the reality of a lot of people. And but some other people actually have some extra time depending on the kind of job they already have at the moment. And so this is a decision that you have to make, whether you can, even if you can afford actually, to take a break. For me, I took some months not working to actually take the transition. And but for some people, it's also possible to work and like learn at the same time. It's just that you need a different strategy for that. And also how much time and resources you want to invest in your career transition. So for example, how much um, how much time do you have per week to, for example, sometimes we are working, I mean, not these days, but you would come back home and would like, I'm gonna watch TV, and then instead of watching TV, you can watch a course and you can work in a project. And so this is kind of like a decision that you have to make with yourself, like how much time can I dedicate to my career transition, how many resources, like if you're going to be paying for some courses, if you decide that you want to take a certification, how much money are you actually willing to invest in that. It's possible to also do this without having to pay for anything, but maybe you want to do it fast, and then maybe you think that this is the best for you, or you just prefer to have someone to help you and so on. So this is kind of like you have to make the decisions of what kind of commitments you're going to make, and also like if you have a family as well, like how much time you actually can devote to this and so on. And also how long do you want the transition to take? I mean, like being realistic, of course, because of course, if you don't have too much time to devote to learn or to get experience and so on, it will take longer just naturally, because you will need more time for that. But you can try to put a number in your head, like I in 6 months I want to transition, or in, I don't know, 1 year. And it will depend on like also kind of level of knowledge you want to have by the time you start working. So it's like these are like questions that you have to ask yourself and try to answer yourself as well. So There is also like how you're gonna, I mentioned this before a little bit of how you're gonna be directing the skills that you have and that you don't. So if you already have skills, how you're gonna be nurturing those skills to keep them strong. So they are strong, but the fields are always changing, so you kind of have to keep up to date. So you can, for example, these projects that I mentioned, you can have projects that you work with groups. You can have projects that you work alone for like when you're building your portfolio. So for example, in projects that you already work, that you're gonna be working with a group of people, it's good that you go for, at least at first, for projects you already have strong skills, because, or that you can use your skills, because this way you have a lot of people that you are working with that can later on say like, hey, I worked with this person and he or she has strong skills in this, and this will sound good for you or look good for you in your profile. And also, if you have limitations in terms of knowledge, like those gaps that I mentioned about the skills that you need to learn, you can try to learn them first in private, like just taking some time to learn from a course or something, and then you apply to some private projects, and then you go and try to do this in other projects with other people, because then it's kind of like also a process for learning more and getting people to kind of endorse your skills, so to say. So in terms of getting hands-on experience, as I mentioned, you can have like personal projects, for example. Let's say I like renewable energies, and then I just try to find a data set, like an open source data set, and play around and just like show some analysis, and then I can put this in my portfolio. And this is, of course, a project that I did alone that shows some knowledge in some field. In the case of renewable energies, that show maybe some skills in machine learning, and then it's something that is for my portfolio. You can also work in open source projects, usually on GitHub, or you can find many open source projects. So these are projects that a lot of people work together, and everybody can contribute. So if you are just trying to learn something from the beginning, you can just have a look. So it's open source, so you can have a look into the code, and maybe you find a bug, or maybe you think that the documentation is not so well written. And then you can contribute maybe initially in simpler ways, and then maybe later on you can have your own open source projects that other people can contribute, and then you just, it's also actually a very nice way to learn people too. And there is also like oh sorry, I wrote two times the same thing. It's like a hackathons and competitions I meant, um, such as there's a very nice website, there's Zindi Africa, that has like a very like lots of social impact projects with data sets that you can uh, play around and participate. And if you win the competition, you also like win something. And there's also Kaggle, there's AI for Impact. There are many hackathons and competitions happening out there. So probably if you Google data science competitions, you're going to find a lot of things. And there are also collaborations. So competitions are usually more like you are either work alone or with a small team, and you're trying to have the best, kind of the best prediction or the most accurate model for a problem. And is everybody looking into the same problem, into the same data set, and trying to find their own solutions. But there are also like collaborations that for me is actually something that I like a bit more, because I'm not super into competition. That is, for example, there is Omdena, as OpenAI mentioned before. There's also DataKind, and there are many others that are basically projects that you also work to solve a problem and so on. But instead of competing with a bunch of people, you actually collaborate. You work all together, and especially Omdena and DataKind are very much oriented into social impact and how you can help people and how you can help society in general. So it's like a very much recommended and very fun to participate. You also meet a lot of people, make a lot of friends, and so on. So in terms of strategy for finding jobs, just kind of like a summarizing a bit of what I said before, you have to build your profile, like be it your CV. OpenAI probably can talk to you about more about CVs, and like your profile on social media, like having this kind of professional style. And then you have to have a look into the market, like the job market. So, for example, as I said before, ask yourself, what sectors am I interested in working in? What positions am I interested in working at? What kind of like techniques I am interested in learning? So, for example, I want to learn more NLP also. I see that maybe working with marketing is something that can help me with that. So, kind of like it will direct a little bit of kind of positions or kind of companies you want to apply to. And also like once you know what kind of like a career path you want to follow, this will help you to build your portfolio. This will help you to build what kind of experiences you want to have next. Because, for example, let's say, oh, I realized that it's very important for me to learn SQL for if I want to work as an analyst, then means that, and I want to work, let's say, for finance. So I will try to work in projects that are related to finance and that are related to SQL, because when I get into an interview in a company, I can say I already have experience with this. I was working not necessarily in a company, but I worked in a side project, be it volunteering or be it something that you did on your private time. But then it's something that you're not starting from zero, even if you don't have like a professional experience, or like I didn't have like a job experience necessarily. And I don't want to I come back to this much, but it's very, very important that we really need to network. We need to talk to people out there, because these are the people that are going to be knowing you, seeing like, oh, I think this position might be interesting for you, or oh, I just met this person that is also interested in this thing. I'll just put you two in contact. And in this way, sometimes it might be the people that will be recommending you for a job. And and then like after you do these things, then you apply. And I don't mean that you have to apply only when you have all the skills, because usually no one has all the skills, and you don't need to have all the skills to apply. But you have to make sure that you did your homework. You have to make sure that you are look professional, that you know how the market for this specific position that you want works, and that you worked on getting some experience, even if it's something basic and so on. But this is at least you're coming, because when you're going to be applying and you're coming to an interview, you're not going to start from scratch, like you already have something to show. And yeah, and then like just continue connecting to the people, continue like participating in events, going there and saying hi, I met you in that event, or I saw that you were in that event. um, like a comment, post on social media, uh, talk to people, and join projects and so on, because this is all like how everybody gets connected and everybody knows what is going on. And maybe there is like, I don't know, an internship position that is interesting and someone recommends you to. And then last, this is my last slide, is just like how you continue with that, because you have to put all of this in practice. So it's important, for example, for you to organize I don't know, for me, I like Google Calendar very much, but maybe there are other people that are more into like writing things down. But whatever works for you, just try to put it into practice. Just try to have a plan, to have something very defined of what is it that you want to do. And try to have someone that is going to be your buddy. So this is not necessarily as a mentor. A buddy is like someone that is going to be learning with you, not necessarily the same things, but it's going to be kind of on the same boat with you. It's going to be someone that is going to be like um, that you can share that, oh, I'm trying to learn this thing, and oh, have you tried this course, and so on. And it's also important to have a mentor, and the mentor is going to be someone, it's not someone that you have to have from the beginning of your journey, but it's good to have at some point. Someone that has more experience in the field, someone that can give you advice of like, oh, I'm trying to learn this. And maybe the person will tell you like, I think this is maybe too complicated for the beginning. Maybe try this later. Maybe look into this thing first, because this is more important. Because those people will know more about the field, and can help you like to just give you like a very helpful advice. And just keep learning. So you learned the basics of what you wanted to learn for your field, then go for the next thing. Then maybe learn something when you learned everything that you wanted to learn, like the basics. Try to go for something a little bit more advanced, just for fun, like just so you can keep the moment and so on. And it's very important to don't forget to have fun. So it sounds a bit funny or silly, but the thing is that it is a long process. It's stressful. You apply for places, no one replies to you, and it happens. It happens to everybody. It's not because you're doing anything wrong. It's just like very competitive out there, especially now with the pandemic. And it's also important that you find a way to motivate yourself, and that's why we have the buddies and mentors and the community and so on, because it's when, at least to me, whenever I'm feeling a bit kind of demotivated and so on, I try to, even like this thing with the work plan, I just try to look back into my work plan and I see like, oh, I didn't know this thing, and I don't know, 3 months ago I didn't know this thing, and now I actually have experience with that, and then I feel happy again. So it's an important thing to do as well. And yeah, that's it. And thank you, and good luck with your career journey.